Hello, and welcome to Coding with the Dead, one of the shows, the only currently airing show on Studio Remote, brought to you by Columbia University Libraries. My name is Moacir, and I am the Research Data Librarian at Columbia University Libraries, and I am here to do a little bit of Ember coding today and get some stuff done while listening to a little bit of music. This is only our second episode on YouTube Live, and already a couple changes have happened. I have a new camera, so now this looks perhaps a bit fancier than it used to, and my opinions and skills have hopefully also gotten fancier in addition to the tools. So just like a true craftsperson never blames their tools, a upgrade in tools should come along with an upgrade in the craftsman's skill and ability. So hopefully that will be the case. And maybe if I'm a little bit more visible, you can see my scraggly beard, etc. It'll encourage me to trim and shave more often too. We'll see. But there's these little wings too. Well, in a word, I have to start paying more attention to my hair situation. But that's not why you've joined. You've joined because I'm going to be working on Ember, and I have these two tasks over on the menu here. One thing I'm going to do is enhance Leaflet, and the other thing I'm going to do is begin building the Mirage backend. So let me switch over to my desktop, and here we have the look and feel of the Wander Text app, which is what I'm building as it currently exists, and so it's here. And I'm running this on localhost. It's not very easy to see that, but I'm telling you that. And here on localhost, the modal disappears. This is expected behavior when I click. When I zoom out, we have this nice bit of tiles provided by Esri that don't have any political markings, which I really like. And then if we zoom in, this is all stuff that I talked about last week, where we have this hilarious Manhattan that's kind of part of New Jersey, and it's a little bit ridiculous, but when you zoom in, it switches up the mapping to this different tile layer that includes political information, so it's helpful when we're trying to add data that's very geographically specific, like, I don't even know what these things are. The Guggenheim is somewhere here. Maybe that's it. So, like things that I have to place specifically when I'm doing the geographical, the data entry, I can now do. This sets up a problem, however, because, sorry, I was reading about the Fujis earlier. If you go to the production version of the site, which is at wandertext.space, and you zoom out, you get the same action, but when I zoom in, boom, no active subscription. So it looks like the tile layer I chose last week works perfectly fine in development, but not in production because it wants a subscription. So that's perfectly acceptable in the sense that it is behavior that I am not unaccustomed to seeing. And so let me see. Hold on, Jeremiah is writing something to me about the stream. Okay, never mind, it has nothing to do with me. Anyway, the frequent moderator of the chat, Jeremiah. Anyway, so I need a different provider than the one I was using that provides that sort of level of, so I think it was this Stadia Aliad Smooth, and it doesn't seem to say anything here about a subscription, but one or another, it's asking me for one, and I don't have one. So I can't use the Stadia tile layer anymore. That's okay. I have used the Stamen Toner Light before. It's very, as you would expect with a tile layer called Toner, extremely high contrast, and a little bit too high contrast, I think, because it makes it tricky to, it's a little bit too high contrast. I would prefer something a little bit washed out. So let's keep scrolling here. Cardo, I think that the positron, CardoDB's positron, I think this is what I had originally. I'm just zoomed in here somewhere randomly in Germany. And, that would be an option, but I was saying a whole lot of stuff earlier about not wanting to use Cardo's maps for no real reason. But if I keep scrolling here, that doesn't work. So originally, in the old version of Wander Text, back when it was called New York Walker, I used the Mapnik tile layer. And you know what? I know I just said that I wasn't going to use the the toner because it's high contrast. This isn't super high contrast, but there's a lot of color, so it sometimes is a little bit tricky for the markers to really pop. But that's something I have a certain amount of control over, so let's use this tile layer instead. Change this from Elliott Smooth to OpenStreetMap. Zoom in a little bit. So they provide a URL, and then they provide the rules for the attribution. In the component, say, Elliott doesn't show up here anywhere else, nor does it show up here. How does the attribution work? So now, when I zoom in, ta-da, it turns into OpenStreetMap stuff. So this is the good old familiar OpenStreetMap. And now I can find the Guggenheim, which I was having difficulty finding earlier because I'm not very familiar with the Upper East Side. I don't want to waste y'all's time looking for it again, although it's somewhere around here. Anyway, so we have all that set, so let's make this change and let's push it straight to production. Looks good. Okay, so that was what we needed to get done with the tile layer. So I wrote that I'd be enhancing Leaflet, but that's really all I kind of had planned. But there was an interesting little side thing going on with Leaflet. I'll make this a little bit bigger and easier for you all to read. So there was another thing going on with Leaflet. So 2 weeks ago I had difficulty installing Leaflet, or Ember Leaflet, and so I put some issues into the Ember Leaflet maintainer, Miguel, and he set everything up and took care of everything and fixed it all up, and it runs again. But now it's throwing a lot of deprecations related to Embroider. And Embroider is the new a new sort of way of building Ember applications that's based, like they say here, that it's based on a spec as opposed to on just a bunch of different ideas that just sort of, this is, I guess, our ecosystem's build time capabilities are more implementation defined than spec defined, and that implementation has accumulated capabilities organically while only rarely phasing out older patterns. So a better sense of how Ember apps are built is generally a good thing. It's a little bit of a mystery, and messing around with the Ember CLI build file can cause some problems. So Embroider is this way of putting together a new way of building Ember apps that's a little bit more modern, that uses Webpack, for example, to bundle everything together, and that provides certain kinds of side benefits. What most interests me is the tree shaking, because I've worked with projects that have had large JavaScript bundles, usually large data sets, that are only required in one place, like a little bit into the app. They're not required on the front page. And it would be kind of nice if that could be, if the code could be split. Sorry, tree shaking and code splitting, I think, are two different things. Code splitting is when the JavaScript chunks are split up and only get loaded as necessary, whereas tree shaking, I think, is when unused parts of libraries, etc., are shaken off the tree. So it's okay to bring in an entire library like Lodash, even if you're only using one method. I think that's right. And anyway, so getting WanderText up and running with Embroider has been kind of a goal of this whole process, and it's something that I implemented about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer. But it was causing some problems, and among those problems, it was causing some problems, and among those problems were I was having problems with Embroider with Ember Leaflet. I was trying to make pull requests for Ember Leaflet to bring it up into line with Embroider, and I was having difficulty, and then it turned out to be the case that Ember add-on docs was causing a lot of problems, and so I went today just getting ready and just saw this Ember 3.2.7, which is one version behind the current, or one minor version behind the current version. It's currently 3.28. And/or Embroider test breaks EC add-on docs. So this is Ember CLI add-on docs. And I found this comment here that was really heartening to me, because it says, "I believe that Ember modal dialog is a source of a lot of our Embroider woes," which is actually resonant with what was going on 3 weeks ago or so when I was trying to make this modal and couldn't do it with Ember modal dialog because of all the problems with Embroider. It was just not working. So instead I implemented Ember Promise dialog, I think it's called, which works great and does exactly what I want to do, and I've made a couple little little changes to it to do more of what I want to do, but that's all great. Let's see if this has the... Nope, not yet. Let me just force a reload. Nope, not yet. Okay. So I'm not too fussed about whether when production will get. So that's sort of the state of the ecosystem now, is that I'm eager to to help out in bringing Ember Leaflet into Embroider World, because then that also prepares it for Ember 4. But Ember Leaflet relies on the Ember Clay add-on docs add-on to build its documentation, and add-on docs relies on Ember Modal Dialog, and if Ember Modal Dialog is just behind in everything and breaking Embroider, then that snowballs. But everything works okay now. It'll just be a problem when Ember 4 comes out. So hopefully everybody will take care of it by then. Okay, so I think that's all the leaflet stuff I was planning on doing. Which means I'm kind of eager to move on to the next thing. So let's change this. Okay, so it's time to begin the important parts of the app. Getting the menu to work was fun. I'm not quite done with it yet, but that's okay. Because it works well enough. I should probably build out some tests for it, but most of that sort of stuff is cosmetic for the time being and would involve mostly acceptance tests, which I can take care of down the road too. But now we're going to have to start building the Ember Data side of things. So it might make sense to sort of plot this out a little bit with issues and epics and stuff. So I think I have documentation. Okay. Here's how it is. I'm going to go to pre-coding with the dead. I think that this is before I broke everything. And let's have a look at delete isn't all colored cute. So I made back in the old days, the old version of WanderText was using the backend was being served up by Apollo servers, so it had this whole GraphQL interface, which is currently useful because it seems to be the only record I can find off the top of my head without doing a lot of rewinding in Git to hunt down what the models look like. So let me So the contributor obviously has an ID, authentication, I don't know what that is. First name. String. Every contributor has a last name. Enabled is whether they can use the system or not. Editor is whether they are an editor or not. Admin is whether they are an administrator or not. This is all pretty clear. Some basic information about the contributors. I think that I'm not entirely sure, but in the past when I did the authentication it was through GitHub and or through Google. I don't know how exactly I'll do that now, but that's entirely an implementation detail. The key is to have some kind of like SSO ID or something along those lines, or third-party auth, etc. So there will be something along those lines, but all this contributor stuff definitely can wait until much later in the process. So let's keep building here. So the next thing I have here, this is the meat more or less of WanderText, is the entry model. So let's scroll down a little bit. Listen to your teeth, it's alright. This should be a UUID. It's alright. This should be something like a username. So the idea is that IDs are sometimes human readable and sometimes not. Entries don't need to have human readable IDs, but usernames do. Like if my username is Moacir, then I want to be able to go to wandertext.space/users or whatever, contributors /Moacir, as opposed to contributors/ then some UUID. Okay, so properties is a JSON object. So this is something that GraphQL lets me do, and some databases let me do. I can't remember off the top of my head if Ember Data lets me have a JSON object as a type, but we'll see. A tested name. It's alright. We will get by. We will get by. We will get by. We will survive. We will get by. We will get by. I like how GraphQL does this in the schema. Is entry is a type here that's down here. So this says that entries is an array of entry types and text is an array of text types. And then there's a flags, which is an array of flag types. So every entry can have more than one contributor because people can edit, etc. So it's not just the person who created it the first time. And then there's a text, and then text. I think this means that it's required that it has a text and place. Every entry must have a place. I think that this is Daisy loaded ID, something like that. And then a place can have multiple flags. Or an entry, sorry. Well, place can too. Sort of creative things, I think, with the part that gets me excited about Wander Text is the way that that semantically rich geospatial data sets part of it. And what that means is that I, as someone who has worked with semantically rich data in the form of novels, know that the sort of information that you track can sometimes be unpredictable and can get kind of complicated. And I've seen many professors, and myself included, many researchers, let's just say, I've seen many researchers deal with trying to manage these kinds of data shapes that change over time, and they end up with something that's a little bit unschematized. And sometimes that's a problem, sometimes it isn't. So what is clever, I think, that this can do is that it has these entry properties. So these properties are text specific, but apply to entries. Who is speaking So as such, they have a name. This requires a little bit more description. Name of the property. can be a string, etc. It can also be something like a dictionary. I don't know what it's actually called, that are controlled vocabulary, and so on. And then I don't have this here because I think I was just sort of starting this, but every entry property belongs. No, it doesn't belong to a text, because if I have an entry property called something like let's say the text is a person's life, so every place is associated with a specific date and time, then that is a property that can be shared across many types of text, because if I have a bunch of texts that are a bunch of lives that track the same sort of thing, then why not just repeat it? Why have a different one for each text? As long as it makes sense to reuse it as opposed to create a new one. So I suppose there should be an ID. There's a lot of sort of shaky stuff with the entry property because it's a weird way of thinking about it. The entry property is why initially I was building Wander Text with a NoSQL database, because I like the idea of sort of schemaless blah blah blah, but as I worked with that more and more, I realized that there actually was a schema to all of this. The issue was having this set of properties that were text specific and being able to mobilize those. And you'll see as I keep moving down here how that gets mobilized. So flag is pretty easy. There's just an ID, and every flag has a comment. Obviously a code to that and modify that. That's hypothetically information I don't particularly care about. Entry, so it can be related to an entry, a flag, or it can be related to a place. None of these are required, as you can see, or it can be related to a text. And it has a creator, let's call it that, a contributor. Okay, so the text is, the entry is the, hopefully, most common item in the database, but the text is the one that is what it's the relationship between the text and the places via entries that provides the power of wander text as it begins to take shape. So as a result, the text object is a little hilariously complicated. So the ID is an ID, and this is human readable. Name, string, obviously it has to have a name. Pop-up template. What on earth was I thinking about this? So, the name of a text, if it's a novel, it's in italics. If it's a short poem, it's in quotes. And if it's a person, then it has no formatting. So the markdown name is sort of the presentation of the name. Markdown blurb is just a little bit of metadata about text, a little blurb, URL. So there's often a little picture associated. So here we go. Entry properties is a list of the entry property type. And because it's a list, that means it has an order. And so it helps so that the input when entering an entry is predictable. Entry sort is a string. This is the sort parameter. Entries are all entries. Properties, JSON. I don't remember what the properties would be. computed. So these run into sort of Ember Data hiccups that I ran into with WonderText about being able to grab these sorted entries rather quickly, or sorted the way that the text expects them to be sorted, both the IDs and the entries themselves. This is sort of in trying to figure out, well, what's the next entry if you're flipping through a book, say, or a person's life. Where was the next place they went to that we know of? And there isn't really, I couldn't figure out a clean way to do this. So there's these computed values that get updated, and just saying this out loud just sounds so expensive, but it is somehow the entry, the order of the entry IDs for a specific text, that has to be cached in some way, because it's an important thing that it seems that with any, it's an important thing, and it seems like resorting the entry, like doing another query for all the entries that belong to this text and then sorting them every time a new entry is added or there's a change, seems like a lot. So the sorted entry feed, this is a GraphQL thingy or something along those lines about getting pagination to So confidence is an integer. It's an idea I came up with to sort of do a quick estimate on how confident one is that the place that they're pointing at is the actual correct place. If there's a reference to Central Park in New York City, there's a high confidence that the giant green rectangle in Manhattan is what is in mind whenever someone says Central Park in New York City. If they say, we went to the city on Friday with a capital T and a capital C, that requires a little bit of context. So if you're, no wait, this is to the place, not to the thing. Basically, things start losing confidence when the placement of the marker gets a little shakier and shakier. I think a reasonable example of this is either places that we know don't exist, for which we can give a confidence of 0, or places like, I think it's called Thousand Pines in Crying Above 49, where we don't really know where it is, but we kind of know where it is, in the sense that we know that it's around it's not far from Stanford. It's in that part of Northern California. And similarly, wherever Lake and Verarity is, and I don't remember now what the name of the town is, the main town in Crying About 49. It's just in Verarity, I can't remember. But we don't know exactly where it is, but I know for a fact that Pomona school has made claims that the city is a stand-in for Pomona. So when I created the place for it in the previous version of WonderText, I just sort of like put a marker in Pomona and I said that this is whatever the name of that city is. I should look it up because it sounds really silly. I can just say whatever. San Narciso is quote-unquote Pomona. So when I made the entry for the San Narciso place, I just put it in Pomona, but with like a confidence of 1, because I'm not super confident that that's where it is, but it's a good guess. Last couple of things are GraphQL specific things. So we can see that it's not the most outrageous I don't know how Folding works in there. So it's not the most outrageous model or schema. There's one contributor, entry property, flag, text, and place. Those are all the models. So we can start sort of building those out, because that'll at least help with some of the errors that we've got now. So let's create some issues. Either way, voices tell me so. Tell me so. Oh. I seem to have already made models. Excellent. Okay, so let's create the other ones. So here we have the text model, and it currently has no properties except that it has many entries and there's an attribute string called title. So we know already that that can't be right because we have, we open up the schema here, and go to so it's not title, it should be name, because title is a little bit too associated with the book, and that's not what I want. Well, let's bring this up here. So let's just duplicate this a bunch of times, and let's just go over here and let's change this to pop-up template. Skip entry count for now, so let's do entry count, but let's comment it out. Sort of rolling. This hasn't loaded. It's already 4 o'clock. Let me take a break, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes, or maybe a little bit longer, and then we can continue with our exciting coding. So let's say we're taking a short break, and let's say I'll be back at 4:13 p.m. And that should be obvious. It's 4:13, but whatever. And I'll let you enjoy He's Gone in the meantime. So see you in a little bit. Sorry, I ran a little bit late in my return from my break, but I have my my suspicious red drink here. Got some sugar-free fruit punch going on. Get those chemicals in my system. Give me a little bit of a perk, a little bit of a hop at the end of the day to power through the last 45 minutes of Coding with the Dead. So the leaflet stuff, so you can see here, the leaflet stuff has already been taken care of, and that's it. And now it's time to begin building the Mirage backend. So I haven't moved on to Mirage yet because I'm still building out the models and designing the models in Ember Data. But then moving on to Mirage from there is pretty straightforward because the actually wiring up Mirage to provide those models is easy. Then where things get fun or tricky or whatever is by providing the dummy data, which is what I'll do. Even though I have a bunch of data somewhere, I would rather be working with dummy data because this is where the sort of testing stuff will really become important. Because it's one thing to write a test to make sure that the menu slides in or something like that. Like, you know, yes, it would be great if I did, but in my opinion, that's not like mission critical testing. Mission critical testing is if I make a change, I want the change to do, like, I want to make sure that that change goes through, and I want to make sure that it does the necessary things to tell me if it didn't go through, etc., etc. So let's switch over to the computer, and you can see where we left off. So I was filling out this text model with this sort of stuff that I... there we go. Text is here. I was filling it in with all these sorts of things here. So we were up to entry sort, entries, properties created at, and modified at. So I don't have those yet. Let's actually things up here. Exactly what it is, but I think it's called date. Okay. So now there are a couple of obvious problems here. Well, obvious to me at least, is that, for example, the year isn't a string, it's a number. But I can't remember off the top of my head what the Ember Data attribute types are. So let's have a look at them. So they have defining models, blah, 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 defining attributes. So we have, okay, these are all attributes. Okay, string, number, boolean, date. So this should be a number. And these should be dates. Now, are those my only options? Custom transforms. So, like the created at, like this is good to set it up with a default value. So let's look at transform. So what I'm curious to see is if there's a Ember Data JSON transform. Pattern, I guess. This looks good. Sort of recently updated. Upgrade Ember and Friends to 3.14. That's not super great. Let's see what it says here. Converts attributes that are JSON into POJOs. It seems insane, but you kind of need this now and then. It's not insane at all. I need it all the time. So, what does this add-on do? Transforms JSON.js. By the owner, it's read-only now. Alright, yeah, I think that I can do a little bit better. And it gets with nested data and the data models. By not using transform, nothing is passed to DSAdder. So this is the person David Tung who wrote the Ember Data book that I read and learned a lot from. So what is the recommendation here? Let me zoom in so you all can see. Okay, so address, don't give it a... I mean, this is an old post, last reviewed January 2016. So don't give it a type, okay? Ember Data will just pass through the data and set it on the model to change a specific property on the address, address.street. Okay, that sounds good. Now let's say you have the following JSON for a user, history, blah, blah, blah. History is an array of items. The model won't use, so the history data will pass the address. Okay. Similar to before, there are two you may think you could modify it and expect it, especially if you're whatever. You need to modify use Ember set. This is old. Embedded records. Beating with a speed of sky, Russians clouds the sea, going over you. A peaceful place, so it looks from space. People I follow on Twitter. Okay. I'm not thrilled with those as an answer. I kind of like this, the idea of a custom transform for JSON. Oh, check that out. transform. That lets me... This can help with validation stuff.
And a politician throwing stones, singing ashes, ashes, all fall down. Ashes, ashes, all fall down. Come on, silent kids, strike bosses, rolling the dice. Anyway they fall, can't you just to pay the price?
Okay, so properties should definitely just be that. And it's on the... No, sorry, this is properties. Has many entry properties. Somehow the order is going to have to be maintained here. I'll worry about that later.
Just feel not fade away. Not feel away.
Entry properties on it. So a classic example of a entry property that would be shared by multiple texts is page. Not all texts will have a page, like we'll record something that's a page number, but many will. And now we know how to do that. Okay, so I think that's all the models.
Just feel the wind.
790.
Through the jungle. But who
Models with initials. Bum bum bum.
just wanna let a little piece to die. And a friend or two I love.
I mean, these definitely seem like things that could be fixed. The value of creating a markdown transform is a little bit lost on me. Like, I can understand wanting to validate markdown, but that's, you know, are these transforms here to validate? Is that it? Could be. I could just leave everything blank and rely on validation at the database level or whatever, or in testing to do this sort of thing. But we'll see as we continue on this journey.
Maybe go beneath the ground.
Okie dokie. So, alright, so that's all set. Boom! That issue disappeared. So now we have install and configure Mirage. This is going to be a bit of a bit more work. So, what do I have? I have 15 minutes. So let's see what we already have with Mirage instead of having the whole confusing thing that I had earlier today when I didn't think I'd created any models. So, Mirage is a framework thingy that creates a custom backend, and I really like it because one of the things it really lets me do is, so it's meant to mock out a backend, but you can also with fixtures just end up having it run as a backend. So this is, for example, what we're doing in the Rose Hall project. Is the entire backend is mocked out with Mirage. I haven't done that with any Columbia stuff, but I work, for example, on I volunteer at a gallery, and like one of the websites that we built, this is the website for the project 1002, and if you enter in, hopefully it won't crash. Like, this is a, an Ember site that has, these are coming in from Ember Data, and this is like a thing, and it opens up this model clips and shows you a list of the clips with the most recent clip up here, etc. All these sorts of things, and I guess, this is all the clips. It's not team-based, but team is another model, and here are all the teams, and we can go here and then see the artists involved with each team, and then that's another model of artists that has certain stuff like blah blah blah, and then the related clips, and you go back to the teams, etc. All this is being done by Mirage. There's no external database. It's not entirely true, but it's close to true. So the names of the artists and the team information, etc., is all done on Mirage, just fixtures. So I just, when the artists were all added, I just sat there and typed up JSON for each artist. The part that does talk to an external database is actually these videos, because these videos were added over the course of the project. You can see week 10, week 9, week 8, etc. And instead of having me go through the effort of, instead of having me always have to update these JSON files to account for new videos and do all the belongs to blah blah blah, and include this description of the video. I mean, this is a kind of small description. Let's see if one of the other clips is slightly bigger. They tended to be rather short, but instead, the person who uploaded this to YouTube would then enter in the data that they pasted into YouTube into an Airtable. And so actually the list of clips is being pulled from Airtable, because I didn't want to teach them how to write JSON, or it was just a way that I felt was an easy way to sort of have me less involved in the day-to-day work, because these clips were going up every day across the different teams, and it was a way, there are 10 teams, or 11, 8 and 3, 11 teams, or no, 10 teams plus the consultants. It was a way for me to get out of having to be involved every day, because like I said, they're uploading videos every day, and it was so it was a light lift for the uploader, because they're already copying and pasting the YouTube link and the description and all this sort of stuff. So copying and pasting it right away into an Airtable was less work than emailing me saying, Moacir, this is ready, upload it, and then when I get to it, it's only when it goes live, whereas when they paste it into the Airtable, it immediately goes live. So that's the Airtable side of things, and that's its own thing, like writing the adapter for Airtable, because the only current Ember Airtable adapter doesn't work super well, or something like that. least it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So I had to write my own adapter, and that's its own whole thing, and maybe we can get into that at some later point, at some later date, excuse me. But here we have, but the rest of the stuff, like I said, the artists, like the pictures associated with them, all this sort of stuff, this is all in Ember Mirage, loaded as fixtures. So it's pretty cool, and I like it because because I still think about these sorts of projects in these terms, in the sense of that, like this MVC kind of way, that you have the different these different models that have different objects associated with them and everything. Because if you look at other ways that are given to sort of start out these kinds of Ember projects, then it runs into a bit of a problem. So, like, for example, and I really like this tutorial, so Yehuda's So Yehuda, I know that this came out over a year ago, so I figured maybe there had been other stuff here, but not yet. So Yehuda has this, I guess, 4, these 4 blog posts about using Ember Octane. And what I really like is that it really takes this HTML first mindset, which is how this project started. It started with the HTML, like I sort of fleshed out what the design would look like, etc., etc. And now I'm kind of cheaty doing that because I don't have real data, so I'm going to start having fake data. And the idea of using Airtable in the previous example came from this post where Yehuda had this fixture data that was being fetched in, so I'm going to show this. I'm going to end up running out of time just telling these stories, but that's okay. So Yehuda had okay, yeah, so the
Ask my family doctor about that I had. Said, now, doctor, who's taking me? Doctor, can you tell me what's in me? He said, yeah.
So in these apps, like Yehuda builds all this out by like literally typing out the HTML of what the schedule would look like, and then works backwards to turn that into an app. And the but that's it's got to be here. So the pulling out data, so this cleaning things up, all this sort of stuff hasn't happened yet, but the original data actually used for the EmberConf 2020 website, Yehuda created a JSON file where everything kind of looks like this, and then you have this whole JSON file that needs to get pulled in from somewhere. So getting the data into your app, and one way of doing that is on the model hook on the route to just paste that JSON in. And it comes in, and that works perfectly fine. And I think that's what... Oh, and then Yehuda changes it so that it fetches the JSON file. So this is all fine and dandy, and it's a way to get, like, if you have a web page that just has a whole list of things, like a list of artists or something along those lines, then you just write that all out in JSON. You can do a fetch here, and you don't need to use Mirage. But what this doesn't do is it doesn't allow for the sort of deeply intertwined relationships to be created. So Mirage lets you do that because Mirage can act like an ORM, and it can actually do things like do queries for loading related data. Whereas this project, the way that this is described, just doesn't let you do that. It doesn't allow for that sort of customization. It's a good way to load a list of structured data, or a data set, but not if you have multiple models going on that come from different places and so on. Which is why this works for something like a list of movie clips, like in the gallery example that I used, but it only worked for that one specific model. It wouldn't have worked if I also had the artists in Airtable and also the teams in Airtable. Okay, so that's all that. So that's what I like about Mirage, is that it lets me do this sort of thing. And go to the documentation page here. I think this is a little bit I'm a little bit zoomed out. So okay, there we go. So Mirage discovers the models, but we can create this sort of models here, and there's not a whole lot that needs to be done to the models except to define their relationships between the models. So I already have these 3 models here, so let's create the models and put in the relationships and then call it a day. So Ember generate Mirage model, contributor is missing.
Good love, good love. You know what I'm talking about? Good love. What about you? Give me good love. Give me.
I must have uninstalled Mirage.
Like you won't regret it. Good boy.
That sounds a little bit familiar. And I'm thinking I may be broken. It may be broken. Mirage was not installed, and then let's see what changes it made on the Mirage folder. Okay. Okay, so now if I look at text, I can see that it has many entries. I can also say it has many places, and It has many contributors. And it has many flags. Oh, and it has many entry properties. Has many entries. We have many places. We have many texts. We have many flags. We have entry properties. Property has many texts. That's it. Put in the custom name here, so it's creator. Okay. All right. Well, the show ended. It's after 5 o'clock, and I configured the models. So this hasn't quite fixed the issue. So I can't say that that's all done, but I can definitely commit. So figure Mirage models. So it doesn't do the faking yet, but this is pretty good. Oops, that makes sense. Okay, so that's it for this week. Let me make eye contact with you, the viewer, and thank you for watching or watching this from the future. And next week I'll be back for more, and that will probably involve configuring Mirage to provide dummy data so we can start building the rest of the app, and it can be more than just a modal over a blank map. So until next time, which is to say next Tuesday, I will be seeing you. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be notified, I guess, if the next time I go live, in case you forget. And that's about that. So see ya.